Well, yesterday afternoon, I had the opportunity to meet with the Department of Justice and the team that they have in town. A lot of the same folks that you saw at the press conference that you were at earlier this morning. We had a chance to preliminarily discuss their findings and their recommendations for the Albuquerque Police Department. Like our other meetings, it was a very collaborative and positive meeting from the standpoint of an urgency to make important changes and to work together. Today, like you, I got a copy of the findings letter about the same time that the public got that letter, and I was able to watch the DOJ press conference that they held earlier this morning. I want to start off by saying it's good that we have this report. The findings in this report and the recommendations in this report are very important, and they're important for a couple of reasons. Today, we know a lot more about the challenges and issues within the Albuquerque Police Department than we knew yesterday, than we knew last week, or that we even knew last year. And it's also good that we have it because I see this as a mayor, and I've talked to Chief Eden about this. We see this as the very beginning of a process. This report is not the end. This report is actually that milestone that we need to start the process of building trust, making important changes, giving our officers in our police department the tools and resources, training, accountability, and all the things that are mentioned in the report that they need to go out and do their job within the community, and to also go about their job in a safe, effective, and a constitutional manner. I want to start again by thanking the DOJ for their efforts and their collaboration over the past year and a half that they've allowed us to work with them. This has not been a quick process. This has been a year and a half process. Over 500 days, I think, to get to this point. But they have really extended a hand to us. You know, early in this process, we gave them unabated access to the Albuquerque Police Department. We didn't want this running through the mayor's office or being filtered or anything along those lines. And they've been very communicative to my staff and have approached this in a very professional manner. And I also want to thank the community, especially those that have a lot of concerns, who have taken it upon themselves to be passionate, to be active, to push this issue throughout the last year and a half. I recognize that as a mayor, and I appreciate that. And as we start this process from this point forward, especially with the help of the DOJ, I look forward to a very robust and ongoing discussion throughout the city of Albuquerque. I want to say that I agree with the DOJ that today marks a very important milestone both for APD and the city of Albuquerque. And I want to echo what the U.S. Attorney said during the press conference, that just as important as the findings are, the path forward is going to be vital. Along with the DOJ, I am optimistic about the future for several reasons. And you're going to hear me say some of the same things that the DOJ said in their press conference on why I'm optimistic, but I think we have a shared vision here. We do have confidence in the great majority of the officers within APD who do honorable law enforcement work every day. They're professionals, they risk their lives, they do great work within our community. And I was very, very happy that the DOJ really made a great point of that in their press conference, because I believe that with all my heart. And as I talk to folks in our community, even those who have grave concerns, I hear that echoed throughout. The men and women of the Albuquerque Police Department do have folks in our community that know we need to make changes, but I believe will be there to support them in that process. I do agree with the DOJ that this process has been extremely collaborative and professional, and I have every confidence that it will be the same moving forward in this process. I know that my strong desire to make changes is echoed throughout our community, and I have confidence that the community will step up, as they have, to work right alongside us in this process to ensure that our police department is both effective and accountable to the people that they serve. And as difficult as the findings in the report are, and there are some difficult findings in the report, and we recognize that, the good news is that this is an achievable goal. If you work through the report and you look at the report, and of course we'll have to study this in much more detail in the days ahead, in weeks and months ahead as we start to work. But the report talks about building upon some things that we've already been able to do. We know it's not enough, and we absolutely will say that. but we can build upon some of those efforts and initiatives that we've already put into place. We know that there needs to be a revision of policies. They talk about that in the report. We know that we need to implement additional training because of some of the recommendations in the report as well. Implementing additional accountability measures, which some of that has begun already, but we will be meeting with the DOJ to craft these policies and procedures and training in the weeks and months ahead. And of course, they really hit on a key component, which is more robust community input. And we met yesterday with a different branch of the Department of Justice who really takes it upon themselves. It's their job to do this community outreach. And Chief Eden and I met with them, and we had a great discussion. And we don't have the plan crafted just yet, but it involves setting up outreach in all 9 city council districts. It involves having meetings that are facilitated by the Department of Justice, which I think is important because there are people that will come to meetings if all of us are involved rather than just 1 or 2 parts of the equation. And they've tried this in other communities, and communities that have embraced this actually have had a much more effective outcome. So what they're saying is ringing true to us, is that they have some best practices. They have some things that we haven't tried yet in the city of Albuquerque from community outreach. We're going to embrace those as well and really look forward to that. Our community can have confidence that their mayor, their chief, and the Albuquerque Police Department will embrace these challenges, and that we are embracing these challenges, and the process is needed to move this department forward. These are problems that we can solve as long as we work together as a community. We've already started the process, as I said yesterday, to craft community outreach models, and I ask as we go through this process that won't be quick and it won't be easy, but we can achieve it. But we can achieve it primarily if we have the support within the department and the leadership and from our officers, but also one of the most vital components of this, in my opinion, is those in our community, including those that have concerns, to embrace our officers in this process. They will have questions and concerns of their own. They want to do great work. It's our job to give them the tools, training, and resources that they need to do that, as I said, to be effective. And now that we have this report, to do it in a more constitutional fashion, obviously in some of these cases that they put in their findings. So as a community, let's embrace our officers as well here, because I know that they've got a lot of challenges ahead of them. So we're going to take this new information that we have today, we're going to take it to heart, we're going to engage the process. We look forward to working with the Department of Justice and the community, our leadership staff, and our officers to make the Albuquerque Police Department better, more effective, as we go out and serve the people that we love and that we're blessed to get a chance to serve. With that, I'll just do some questions, and Chief Eden is here with us as well, and so we'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And if you could, what I'll try to do is just go around the room, and I saw the first hand here. We'll go there next. Yes, sir. Oh, Mike, let's just go here first. Thanks.
Mayor, can I get your response? I mean, in the report it says there was a failure of the department's leadership to address unnecessary uses of force that reinforce this aggressive culture. Your response to that, and also who do you think is to blame?
I think the DOJ did an important thing today, and they said, look, we have findings, and some of these are difficult findings, but rather than playing the blame game, let's use this as an opportunity to launch forward. We haven't done enough. Obviously, they looked at cases both during my administration and before my administration. It doesn't matter. I'm the mayor of the city today. We've taken efforts and made efforts over the last 4 years. We've had some positive movement, but we need to do more, and we recognize that. We've got a brand new chief here who has told me with no uncertainty that he is ready to go. He sees this, and he can say the words himself, but he sees this report as a great tool for him to implement reforms and others. So, I don't want to point fingers. What I want to do is move forward with the information that we have today. And let's be honest, it's a lot more information than we had yesterday as we continue to craft solutions in the department. Yeah, Mike?
This is probably for Chief Eden, but I want to do the remedies that were suggested by the Department of Justice. And to be quite honest, they appear to be, Police Department 101, rebuilding the chain of command, rebuilding the internal affairs unit, re-empowering sergeants, line supervisors, and sergeants and lieutenants. I mean, how long is it going to take to do that? I mean, it sounds like they're talking about the very structure of your department needs to be rebuilt from the bottom up, in terms of supervision, internal affairs, use of, this is despite the, other than just use of force, I'm just wondering how you operate on a daily basis.
Actually, I believe the first place for,
About that?
I believe the first place to start is at the top. And that begins with myself and the leadership of the Albuquerque Police Department. That's why it's so important for us to meet this afternoon with the command staff of the police department, with the Department of Justice. And it's a meeting just with the command staff and the Department of Justice, so we can have a better picture, a better outlook. As a new chief, for me, this is a new roadmap. This is a roadmap to success for the department, and I'm actually looking forward to working with the Department of Justice in a very cooperative manner and making sure that we make those changes that are necessary to the department.
And the findings, we talked about this last night. Jeff will get you next. Last night.
About the remedies that they were suggesting there.
Yeah, well, and some of the remedies too, they made it clear to us, these are outlines. We will be meeting over the next months, next weeks and months. I mean, it's nobody has an exact time frame, but we're getting to work within hours of their release today. To take what they put in as overarching concepts and then craft those into specific policies and things. Yeah, Jeff?
You've said over and over again during your term as mayor that there was no systemic problem with APD, there was no cultural problem with APD. The Justice Department's report points to both of those things as they see it very differently. So my question is, who was wrong, you or them?
Well, look, we have a lot more information today than we had yesterday, and in some of the information that we have today, frankly, we couldn't get without the DOJ's involvement. We commissioned studies, we put 50+ recommendations into place, and they address that actually in their findings. So each and every day, today I know of challenges that I didn't know about yesterday or last month or last year. But the fact is, we've never lost our faith in the men and women that go out there. So we know more today than we did yesterday. We know there's more changes to make than I probably realized before this report came out, and probably a lot of folks in our community realized. But we're going to use that as an opportunity moving forward. And rather than, like I say, do the blame game, I just want people to understand that we still have faith in our men and women out there. We want to use this report, as difficult as it is, as a way to launch forward. And I still have faith in our folks that are out there serving us, and I just haven't lost that at all. Let's go here, then Dan, I'll get you next.
Mayor and Chief, if you could both answer this.
Yeah.
How are these recommendations going to be implemented? And more specifically for you, Mayor, if we could talk about how they're going to be paid for, how this is going to be paid
Sure.
for.
Some of the things, so first of all, the implementation procedure is a procedure. The DOJ is educating us on this a little bit. They did this a little bit last night. Chief and his command staff are going to meet with them today as well. So they're going to help us line out that roadmap. So we've been told that it takes weeks, sometimes months to craft these plans. We want to do it carefully, thoughtfully, with community engagement, but it's starting almost immediately. So I'll probably be able to answer that question better after this process. We know other cities have gone through this, and we have some ideas of what they did, but as the DOJ said today, every city is unique. But it will be, some of the things that we're going to do, we've actually announced. Chief last week talked about CIT training for 100% of the officers. I noticed in the report, they didn't say 100%, but they used all. Yes, ma'am, look at you. They said all officers. And he's talked about having Deputy Chief Huntsman really start in the process of the internal affairs side of the house and work on that. So I think he's got a good running start on a few of these things, but we really want the DOJ to help us craft that, and that's what they will demand of us as well.
And payment, and then if Chief could just answer this.
Well, some of the things that we're doing, we need to do more of the same. Some of the things are policy changes. We'll probably, with their expertise of the DOJ, use some of that expertise. I don't know what that will cost. The monitoring component of this, I think, is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, because we can use the expertise. Number two, because I think from a community outreach standpoint, there are folks that will really rely on the DOJ's place at the table as a federal agency, as someone who's done this in city after city after city before they even got to Albuquerque. That will build some trust and confidence as well in that process. I think there's a lady, ma'am, did I?
Yes.
Then I'll go right here.
CBS News.
Yes.
Sir.
Mayor, how do you respond to residents in your community who are skeptical of your assurances? They say you've been mayor since 2009 and you haven't fixed these problems since then.
We've been working consistently since 2009. We started with that spike in officer-involved shootings in 2010. We got very aggressive and brought in the Police Executive Research Forum, came up with almost 60 recommendations that we put into place. We realized with today's report that that's not enough, but we just want folks to know that we've taken the situation seriously. Now that we have more information, we're embracing that concept of working forward, and we are just going to keep working until we get this done. But I would just want folks to understand that we've been working hard on this for a number of years, and now we have additional information that we can use to move forward from here.
Do you understand where some people might be skeptical, though, saying that why did it take the DOJ to get information that you as mayor claim you couldn't get and you live here? You're the mayor.
Well, some of the information, because they have the expertise and they have the force, if you will, the workforce, the number of people who have done this in cities before Albuquerque, many different cities before Albuquerque. Some of this information is coming to light in these findings. It's all public information, but the way that they went about this, for example, last night we talked about they did some statistical analysis. They looked at over 200 cases, for example, of non-lethal force. And
Couldn't you have done that?
Well, we worked on this through the PERF organization and others, and it wasn't enough at this point, and so that's why we're happy to have these findings so that we can move forward. But that's, this has been an ongoing process, and we have a lot of work left to do. Yes, sir.
Actually, this question's for Chief Joe
Sure.
Cole from Reuters. Chief, you're relatively new to the job, but you do have a hierarchy here that has been here quite a while, and we look at the problems being systemic. Do you, two-part question, do you see any potential shakeups in your staff since DOJ has identified specific institutional problems?
I think one of the things that we absolutely have to do is find out from the Department of Justice this afternoon exactly what this process is. The process may involve a variety of changes, but I'm looking forward to that meeting with them. This is new to me. It's new to the city of Albuquerque, but it's not new to them. So I'm going to be looking to them, to the guidance that they've offered to us. I think that's the most important thing for me to do, is to listen and listen to them well, and then put together a plan to move the department forward, and that's what we're going to do.
Now, the second part of that question is that when we're looking at revisions in policies and community outreaches, are you going to be bringing in consulting groups or other groups, because otherwise we're dealing with many of the same people that cause some of our problems?
I can actually speak to that, partly. We have actually tomorrow and later this evening, we've actually talked to some folks that worked with Cincinnati back in the early 2000s. And we'll get you all this information in the next couple of days with resumes and all of this, but the essence of it is we have an ACLU attorney who works with a former chief of police who have been able to craft solutions and work with not just the DOJ, but others around the country to help impact these. So I think that outside component is very important. And so that process is starting. That wouldn't be the only consultant that we ever have involved in this process, but that's one that we've had discussions with. And I think these folks might even be available to have some conversations.
So you will be bringing in fresh eyes?
Short answer, yes. I think we had, let's go here and then we'll go back there and then we'll jump back over here. Dan, I missed you, I'm sorry. Let's go here and there. Caleb first.
Hi, Joe Castro with Al Jazeera America.
Oh, I'm sorry. Caleb,
and
you too.
my question is, there are those in the community who say that the DOJ's recommendations don't go far enough. And they do point to your years in office while this spike in police shootings happened, and they're asking for you to step down. Have you considered that? And have you, Chief Eden, considered that as well?
No, we've been working hard on this for, we had a spike in 2010. We put a lot of changes in place just from a statistical standpoint, which you hate to talk about statistics because this is a very human situation here. But statistically, we're able to curb that spike, get the numbers of officer-involved shootings at or below average for the last 3 years. We know we've made some progress. We know it's not enough. And we'll just continue working hard to make sure the department is as good as it can be. But we're just here every day working hard on this.
You haven't considered resigning?
No. Caleb?
Yeah, this is a two-parter for Chief Eden.
Sure.
First part, U.S. Attorney Jocelyn Samuels mentioned that the DOJ is looking into other shootings by APD officers in addition to the James Boyd shooting. Do you know which shootings they are? And the second part of that question would be, are the officers involved in those shootings, what's their status? Will their status change as those investigations continue? Will they be placed on any sort of leave?
When we met with the Department of Justice last night, they gave us no information concerning that question specifically, or those questions specifically. That's why it's important for me to meet with them again this afternoon. We have 2 meetings set up with them, and for me to find out from them how this has been implemented and what has been done in other cities.
They may or may not share that information with us. You're asking if they've shared with Chief what those other cases are.
And they have not shared.
And once they do, once they indicate to you which of those cases they're looking
If they
into,
do.
will those officers, if they do, will those officers be placed on leave? Can you imagine if their status will change within the department while those investigations are ongoing?
I think the question I have to find out the answer to is, will they share with us what other investigations that they're looking at before I make any statement about what the future holds for any other officers?
And we'll respect their, I mean, they'll tell us or they won't. We understand that, and we'll respect that. Dan?
The DOJ report mentions Chief Eden's comments on James Boyd as a sign or perhaps a reflection of the cultural problems within APD. Why should we trust your administration to carry out these reforms?
I'd like to answer that question. As I stated to you after that press conference, those comments were premature and should not have even addressed that question until the investigation had been completed, and that investigation had a thorough analysis by proper legal authority to make that determination. It's not my position to make that determination.
And we talked about that. We've talked about,
Trust your administration to
but
carry out
but
these
we've
reforms?
talked about that and using that as a learning experience as well. And one of the things that the chief and I have talked about very candidly on that situation is that caused a lot of concern with a lot of folks, and I could see why that would do that. We've talked about that as a learning experience, and what I will be looking for in the coming weeks and months is the level of collaboration and the implementation and the willingness to have these discussions. And then I'm going to be looking at, as a mayor, you don't run the police department. I understand that. We have professionals that do that, but I'll be watching very closely to ensure that progress is going forward. And this is where another area where I think the monitoring may help just a little bit. Yes?
2 questions for you.
It'll help a lot. Let me just say it'll help a lot. Yes?
Earlier you mentioned the PERF report, and we've heard about the PERF report over the years and asking about changes, and that was kind of the example of, the city trying to move towards change. But, in the report, it talks about the PERF report and says that it didn't even evaluate officers' use of force.
Yeah, it says it didn't go far enough, and I agree with that assumption, or not assumption, but I agree with that finding. We were doing the best we could with the information that we had. We got aggressive early. We put a lot of changes into place. Statistically, it did make a significant difference, but the DOJ is saying that didn't ask some of the critical questions. So we have a report now that addresses some of those critical questions that didn't get asked. That falls into this category of knowing more today than we knew then. And now we have the resource that we need to help move that forward. And
I have another question. Sorry.
yeah,
Speaking
let me let her finish if I could. Thank you.
Speaking of knowing more now than we did before, it talks about not just officers involved in police shootings, but says the department, quote, endorses questionable and unlawful conduct. Does that come as a surprise to you?
Well, that's the part of the discussion that I think the DOJ had at their press conference as well. We have findings, and the findings I have to rely on their expertise. Those are their findings. What we're doing is we're embracing that process, and so we are going to work with them, and then at the end of their findings, that being one of them, they said at the end of the report, because of all the findings combined, there are certain things that they want to see done. From an overarching aspect of additional training, resourcing, given tools, resources, etc. That process we're fully engaged in. But I don't want to address any one of the individual findings because I think the report speaks as a whole and it's their report. However, we embrace the report and we embrace this concept of working together to craft the solution. And I was very happy to hear the DOJ say that this is a collaborative process. You notice from their recommendations, they're broad-based at this point, and then Chief and his crew and his leadership will go and they will craft, with our consultants, some of them from the outside, craft these policies moving forward. So that will get a lot more detailed in the coming weeks and months. And we're going to have a lot of conversations about this in the coming weeks and months and years, actually, about what the final, plan looks like, and look, judging from other cities that have gone through this, and the DOJ listed a number of cities that have been through this in the recent past and not so recent past, we know that it will be an ongoing process. It won't be just one iteration and then that's set in stone. It will change and it will evolve moving forward. And I liked what the DOJ said too, because I talked to them about this yesterday. They talk about a metric in this, and that's one of the things that's important to me as a mayor, and I think that will be important to the community, is if we have recommendations and once we get this negotiated and we have additional training requirements, let's say, and we have policy changes, and we have other things, accountability measures. What I'm interested in too as a mayor is a metric, so that we do have something that we can have as a conversation with the community. That, you know, when you finish, the answer is never. I mean, you always want to continue improving as a department, but we want some milestones that we can show the community. We agreed on these, we're working towards these, we've met these, maybe we didn't meet another one, but we're working towards that, additional resources. So it's a long answer, but it's going to be a long process as well.
Mayor,
Mayor,
your
piggybacking
first
on
month as
that.
mayor, your
Yep.
first month as mayor was the month that Kenneth Ellis was shot and killed.
A few weeks after I took over, yes, ma'am.
Do you think his family should have had to wait over 4 years for this?
For the DOJ report?
For somebody to come in and say, this needs to be fixed?
Well, later that year is when we started engaging outside experts, including the Police Executive Research Forum. And it's taken, you know, we don't dictate how long it takes the DOJ to do their work. We know they came in 2011 to do an initial inquiry, but it's taken some time to get here.
Are
But
you arguing that things are substantially better, that they've gotten substantially
we have a
better?
lot of work to do. And with this report that we received today, it brought to light some issues that absolutely is more information and issues that they have brought to our attention than we had in even the recent past, as late as yesterday. So absolutely, a lot more work to be done. No question about that. Nobody's questioning that. We just want folks to know that we have been working throughout the last several years to try to make improvements. We haven't gotten where we need to get yet.
So Mayor, is
Patrick?
there
Let me do Patrick. He's been.
This is a question.
I'll get right to you.
It's a question for Chief Eden.
Oh, sure.
The findings mention numerous, particularly with the taser incidents, they do a bunch of pretty disturbing individual acts by officers. Is there any plan of yours to revisit those and perhaps open another internal affairs investigation with those individual cases that were disturbing?
I think one of the things I need to do is, again, meet with the Department of Justice this afternoon. I think they're going to provide us with some good guidance on what should be done. I firmly believe that the things that are mentioned in their findings and in their recommendations, we need to look at in totality, and then we need to start developing a plan side by side with the Department of Justice on how to address all of those issues, including the use of the taser. So will that be evaluated? Most definitely.
Chief?
Let's go here. You've been waiting for a while. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks.
I'll get it back around.
The district attorney's office, although not a part of the investigation, justified all of the shootings that the DOJ today said were not. Is that troubling for you?
Yeah, once again, you know, as the mayor, what I want is better outcomes for the community. And you know, we've tried and you know, throughout the last couple of years to really keep tuned in on what it is that we can do. You know, as a mayor, you don't run the police department, but you bring in leaders to do that. You encourage them to be accountable, transparent. You work with them to get the resources. You watch that and you go through that. We don't run the DA's office, and I don't even want to comment on that because I don't think that's part of a productive discussion. There will be folks that will say what they want to say, but we just want to extend a hand and let everybody know this is going to be a community opportunity here, and I don't want to be the person that's pointing fingers. We want to lead here, and we want to make sure that we're in a position to get everybody involved. Let's go here, and then we'll go back. Yeah.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. Your office is asked to bolster the fund that pays out legal claims to people. You submitted the budget a couple of weeks ago, or at least finalized
Yes.
budget.
April 1st. April 1st.
Did you anticipate this report today, given the fact that you're asking for more money to pay out to potential people who come forward saying that they've been wronged by the city?
The budget move was not predicated on this report. Every year we make an analysis of the city of Albuquerque, and of course not all claims of the city of Albuquerque or any city have to do with just a police department. They involve everything from just all things that cities, are at risk. And so what we do is, and I'll probably be better off letting the finance people walk you through the details of that, but we do a running average, and as there look like there are things that may come through, you up things, and then some other years you reduce those. So this was a budget adjustment requested by the budget staff, actually, and so we were happy to put that in.
Well, I guess
But it wasn't in conjunction with this report.
secondary to that, though, do you expect more payouts
About
to come,
$2.5 million.
given the findings that we just saw, more families to come forward?
Let me ask that. Well, I missed your question. Go ahead.
Do you expect to pay out more settlements? Should the city expect to pay out more settlements to more families?
Because of?
Because of, past problems with the police department.
Well, I know we have a number of pending lawsuits at the city of Albuquerque. I can't comment on individual ones when they're pending, but so I don't really know how to appropriately answer that question. But I know there are pending lawsuits out there.
Is this?
Oh, let me. Was somebody over here been waiting for a while? You were waiting for a while for a second question. We're kind of getting in the second round, so I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to do their first questions first.
This is for Chief. It's somewhat a simple yes or no question. I know that the DOJ is saying that APD needs to be more cognizant, sympathetic, understanding with people with mental illnesses. And I'm also looking at recruitment selection here, where candidates need to undergo a valid psychological examination. It's come out in a recent lawsuit that Officer Martin Smith was 100% disabled from the military with PTSD.
Can't talk about it.
Should this guy have been on the street with a gun?
It's a pending lawsuit. We can't comment. I'm sorry. I don't want to skirt your question, but it's a pending lawsuit, so we can't. Our city attorney would feel like we're remiss to speak about it.
Would somebody coming back from combat require additional testing? Not mentioning this particular officer, are you looking at revamping?
Well, we don't know what the DOJ is going to say on that. I mean, we're going to ask them. That's a fair question to ask, and that's something that I imagine Chief will ask the DOJ. I think you should, but I don't think we know the answer to that. Let's go back here. Russell hasn't had a chance yet.
Chief, the consent decrees in New Orleans and in other cities have cost the city anywhere from $40 million over a 5-year period to implement. Is the city prepared for that kind of cost if there's a consent decree?
A lot of folks are asking the question, myself included, what are the costs going to be associated with this? And I think it depends on how the plan is crafted. We know there will be additional costs. There will be additional costs for monitors. We've seen anything from individual monitors. And we've been studying this as this investigation's been going on. We've been trying to look at other cities, Seattle, Portland, Las Vegas. I mean, there's a lot of examples out there. And what Ms. Samuels from the DOJ said this morning, I think, rings true. Each city is different. Some are a lot more expensive than others. Some have much broader, sweeping findings. Some have less findings than we had today. We know there will be resources available. We know that we will make them available. But we need to, over the next weeks and months, determine what that looks like and then craft a plan for that. But I have every confidence that we have resources because it's an important issue. I mean, and like I say, it's something that we need to address. We're embracing that, and we will resource that. Yeah, Mike. Oh, you've been waiting.
Mayor.
You're next.
My understanding from the Samuels is that there will be a negotiation with the city about whether or not monitors will be appointed and whether the city will pay for those monitors. You asked last week.
I did.
For monitors.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that you fully expect to enter into an agreement with DOJ to have monitors over changes.
I believe
monitoring
is going to be an important part of this equation.
So you're
I do.
pretty much in agreement with
Well, depending on, you never know what it looks like. We have to negotiate it, but from a monitoring standpoint, I think it brings a couple of things to the table. Whether there's one monitor or we don't know what it will look like because we're new to this as well. But from a monitoring standpoint, it does two things. It brings expertise, but it also brings some accountability, and I think it's important for the community, a lot of members in our community, to know that there is that independent third-party person looking at that. So like I say, I don't know what it will look like, and we certainly haven't come to any agreements on that, but I think it will be part of that equation. I know you've been waiting, sir.
Mayor, so is it news to you that the PERF report did not go far enough because of this DOJ report? Because when this came out, yes, shootings did decline. We had some of the most controversial ones post-PERF after those recommendations were put in place. So I guess the question is, why weren't things done sooner in terms of de-escalation training, techniques to better help officers out in the field?
Well, some of these things are ongoing and need to be bolstered from here. We understand that. When I read the initial through the findings this morning, and they talked about that perf report, not asking that question, that was an interesting thing for me to read, you know, from the standpoint of that's what this DOJ report actually did, and it took 1.5 years. So I don't know if that was, I don't know, you know, once again, we didn't have that information then, we have more information today. And so we're glad that we have the DOJ report to give us that information if they, and they've identified that as a hole in that report, or not a hole, but, you know, something that didn't get asked. And so I'm glad we have the information today.
Mayor, I was wondering, do you have anything you'd like to say to the families of people killed by APD now that the DOJ has affirmed some of their accusations that their loved ones died of excessive force?
We know that anytime anybody loses a family member, that is a traumatic incident, and that's a tragedy. And we've said that all along. We wish officer-involved shootings in Albuquerque and every other city in the country were 0. We have information based on this report today that knows we need to do more. And we've had folks in our community for a number of years that have been talking about these issues and having these concerns. Now what we have with this report is we have some affirmation, we have some actual, some data and some findings by an outside independent agency that confirms some of those concerns. And we're taking that seriously. And we just want folks to know that we are earnestly going about the business of making a better police department for our city, giving our officers, as we support them, the tools and training that they need to be even more effective, but also addressing some of the constitutional issues that were brought up today. It's always a tragedy, always, and we understand that.
And the same question for the chief. If you would speak directly to those families who lost sons because of excessive force, the excessive use of force, what do you want to say to them?
As the mayor stated, it's a tragedy when anybody is lost. And those families, I'm sure, feel that tragedy. Our goal is to reduce any type of an event, any type of a situation where our officers always take the appropriate action. That's our goal.
Do you want to offer them any apologies?
At this point, we're working really hard on this situation. Let's just do one more, and I think we're.
Mayor, do you take any responsibility at all for the problems at APD?
Yeah, I'm the mayor of the city, and we had a spike in 2010, and we got very aggressive quickly in trying to bring some answers and solutions to the table. We did some of that. It made some difference. We have information today that tells us that that's not enough. As the mayor, I want people to have confidence that we're taking this seriously, that we have new information now that we can work and build on. We have a collaborative relationship from day one with the Department of Justice, and we will be forging forward with these reforms that we need to make in the Albuquerque Police Department. And we're just working hard every day to do that. And that hasn't changed from day one. But now we've got some additional information, and we're going to keep it moving forward. Thanks for your time today. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.